Ladies and gentlemen, Measure Geeks and wannabe marketers, welcome back to another video of Measure School. My name is of course still Julian, and today I want to teach you Google Analytics 4. Well, is it actually still 4? Can we just call it Google Analytics now that the old version is gone and there's just one version? Let me know in the comments down below. Well, I want to make you proficient at GA4 today, even if you are a total noob, a total beginner at this. I kind of, missed the times when I was a beginner because there was so much more to discover, so much curiosity in me, so much more to learn, and that's why I really envy you if you are a beginner. Well, today we are going to discover GA4 together. First of all, we are going to take a look what GA4 is all about. Then we are going to install it onto our website and gather the data that we need in order to make this whole web analytics thing work. We are going to then dive into the configurations so the data is flowing into our account correctly and we can make sure that it's actually usable. And then we are going to expand our tracking so we actually get the data that is custom to our business, to our website. And then, of course, we are going to take a look at the data together, analyze it, and hopefully get to your aha moment where you are able to make something out of your data, take an action on it. That's very important when it comes to digital analytics. And at the end, we are going to take a look at how you can take the next steps with GA4 and really dive into more and more of the particulars of this cool tool. So with that, we got lots to cover, so let's dive in. So here we are inside of Google Analytics 4. This is actually what it looks like. And you can take a look at the interface. You can actually log into this account particularly because this is the demo account of the Google Merch Shop, and Google gives us this account to actually try it out. I will leave a link down below where you can access this account and you can actually look at all of this different data. Now, what is Google Analytics actually all about? Well, if you are an online store owner, just like the Google Merchandise Store, or you have a blog and people are reading your blog regularly, or you have a SaaS business and you want people to sign up to your tool, then you probably have decisions to make. What kind of decisions? Well, decisions about whether you should put in a new design or change something around on your website. And in order to know what kind of things you could be doing and how you can be optimizing them, what is really helpful in order to do so as an online business owner is to look at your numbers. Now, Google Analytics is a tool that looks at very specific numbers, and you get a little tracking code that you install on your website, and then henceforth all of your different interactions of the users that are coming to your website are being tracked. So when they change, for example, the website, when they go onto a product page and they add something to cart or check out and buy something on your store, all of this can be tracked with Google Analytics 4. Once this data is tracked, you can basically use Google Analytics as your answering machine. You can go into the tool and then kind of say, hey, how many people visited my website last month? And here we see the last 28 days, we had 68K users. We had a total revenue of 127K, and there are more things that we can look at. The last 30 minutes that people came to our website. We can get some insights about where they actually came from and thus see if our marketing campaigns actually still work, or also the location so we know who to target in future campaigns on our website. But this is just a sliver of what you can discover within GA4. There are more tools to it, and when we do marketing analytics, for example, we dive right into the user acquisition reports right here. So how did people come to our website? You can look on the traffic acquisition report and then see here a table of the users that came through a given channel. So for example, our organic search, which would be Google SEO, how many people came and then how long they stayed on our website. We have the engagement rate, but then also very important, the conversion rate. How many conversions did they actually generate? Conversions are kind of like important actions that you want your users to take on your website, and this is something you can track with Google Analytics 4. Now, if you build out your tracking and make it more custom to your platform, obviously this is a web store, we can actually go into, for example, the monetization reports and look at e-commerce purchases that were made and what items were bought on your store and how much revenue that generated. You can look at funnels of how many people actually entered your store and ended up buying and where the drop-off rates are. Or you can find out more about your users, like the tag attributes, what devices do they actually use in order to come to your website here, and which operating system they are. All of this, to be said, is something that will inform you of who is actually visiting your website, where they're coming from, what are they doing, and be able to answer specific questions. And hopefully then you'll get to the point where you say, hey, seems like a lot of Android users are coming to my website. Maybe I should check my Android compatibility on my website, if people can actually check out normally and buy, and if I can optimize anything there. This is a crucial step inside of any digital analytics process. You need to go and make a recommendation, come up with some kind of way to take action on that data. That's how you get an ROI on your analytics investment. So let's talk about why online stores oftentimes use Google Analytics to install on their website. There are multiple other tools out there that can do web tracking for you, web analytics for you. Not all are the same like Google Analytics, but the big differentiator that Google brings to the table is that it's free. And so you are able to utilize and install Google Analytics for free, and it will gather some very powerful data and give you the means of analyzing that data and then getting to insights. So it's really nowadays a must-have for anybody who is operating a professional website. That said, Google Analytics, when you look at the interface right now, maybe is not as intuitive and easy to understand right away. So this is just a quick overview of what it can actually do. In the next chapters, we are going to dive into way more of the specifics on how to set the tool up, but then also get insights out of it and be able to read the data correctly. So don't feel overwhelmed with this data right now. We are going to discover all of this together. So just to recap here, Google Analytics is a free digital analytics solution that you can install on your website or mobile app to track certain interactions on the platform in order to answer simple data questions. It will gather the data for you, process it in a certain way, then show you that data and give you insights on that data to hopefully change something around, be more informed about your users. All in all, a very, very powerful tool. You need to imagine that this tool is really built for the professional use, but you get it for free. So don't be afraid of just installing it on your website and gather some data, and then you'll be able to make your first moves inside of digital analytics, get the insight, and then hopefully make some changes for the better in your organization. All right, if you are now ready, let's install Google Analytics onto our website and gather some data. So here I'm on the homepage, so to say, of Google Analytics, which is under marketingplatform.google.com, and it explains some marketing speech about Google Analytics, but we just want to get started. So we click here on Get Started Today, and it takes us over to analytics.google.com, and you can go over there as well in order to access Google Analytics. Now, if you are doing this for the first time, you obviously need a Google account to do so. Here it logged me in automatically. If you don't have a Google account, I trust you'll be able to set this up yourself. So here we go. Let's create an account, and in Google Analytics we have account and properties. Accounts are kind of a box where you put your properties in. So organizational wise, you probably would choose as the account name your company if you have multiple websites, for example. So let's just call this our company LLC and go ahead and here we can go through the account data sharing settings with Google. So if you want to share some data to Google, read through that. I'll go on next here, and then we'll get to the property. So again, the property lies beneath the account, and you can have multiple properties, multiple websites that you are tracking. So in our case, we have a property here, which is our demo shop, and you can name this whatever you want. Let's go back here. I will just go with our demo shop, and then we choose the reporting time zone. This is actually an important setting because you want to choose the right reporting time zone and sync it up to whatever time zone you are working in, or also your backend, for example, your Shopify backend or your WordPress backend work, and so you can align this later on. So choose the right reporting time zone, and then also you can choose the currency, especially important when you are dealing with an e-commerce website. So let's go here with US dollars, and we'll click on next, and then we'll go to the business details. Google wants to have some information about your business, helps them understand your business a bit better and can tailor your experience. So you can choose your industry type. So in our case, we have our shopping website here, and we have a small business. Let's go to next. And then we get to the business objectives that you might want to have Google Analytics interpret for you. And that actually decides what reports you are able to see in the interface later on. I want to keep it very generic here so everybody can follow along, and I will just go with the baseline reports. But feel free to choose whatever suits you best. Let's create this here, and we go through the TONS. obviously reach through all of this, and I accept this one, and it takes me to the next step, which is our data collection. Now we'll get to this step in a second here, so I will just skip for now. We are almost there, we just need to set everything up. So I'm gonna go and continue home, and we are in our brand new Google Analytics account. Now obviously there's no data flowing in it yet, and that's what we need to set up now. So for our demo here, I have come up with this little demo website where we have an online store and selling some products just to try this out. Now your case might be completely different from what I'm showing right here. E-commerce and WordPress websites are just the easiest to show the installation process and will apply to most of the users out there. But obviously if you are running on a Shopify website, Magento, or if you have completely different CMS, or it's even self-built, you can still follow along with the steps. They will just differ a little bit from what we are doing here. Easiest way, just Google for instructions and you'll find probably something for your CMS on how to install it correctly. But we'll do this on WordPress and just follow along even if you don't have a WordPress website. So first things first, what do we actually need to install onto our website and what does it mean to install something? So in order to measure something inside of Google Analytics, we go into our Google Analytics account, which is now set up, and go to the admin section. And here is where we need to create our data streams. So data streams are basically the data that goes into your account. You can choose to send web data into Google Analytics, Android data, or iOS data. And theoretically through the measurement protocol, way more than that. But these are the protocols that Google Analytics uses in order to capture your data. So in our case, specifically, we are looking at a website. So I'm gonna go with web stream here, and it's asked me for my website URL. So I can just go ahead and copy that from here and put that into my Google Analytics account. Let's get rid of the HTTPS and the trailing slash here, and we can name this. So if you have multiple data streams, we'll be able to distinguish from that. Then we have a enhanced measurement option, and this is a bunch of data that Google Analytics will try to gather for you automatically. You can leave that turned on. We'll take a look at it in a later section as well when we come to actually customizing our tracking. Let's create the stream. And here we get the web stream details, the instructions on how we should install our Google Analytics code onto our website. Now, it found out automatically that we are actually running on WooCommerce or WordPress website here, and it gives me a plugin. That is one way to install Google Analytics onto our website. But what it actually means, what Google Analytics always does in the background, or the plugins do in the background, is actually deploy a little bit of JavaScript code. And this is where the magic actually happens. This is what gathers your data. So this needs to be installed on all the pages on your website in order for Google Analytics to work correctly. Now you might say, oh, I don't do anything with code, I don't know coding. Really, it's a copy and paste method that I will show you here. But yeah, depending on your website and how complex it is, you might want to get some help from a developer to install this actually. Let's go through the 3 methods that you can install Google Analytics on your website. Number 1, we already saw it. You can use plugins. If your CMS is fairly popular and it has a plugin store or extensions to it, there's most likely a way to install Google Analytics onto your website without needing to do any kind of code. You just install a plugin onto your website and then enter a measurement ID. This is something we see down here, where you just copy that into a field. So in WordPress, for example, if I go into the backend of WordPress, I could go here to the plugin section, add a new plugin, and search in the plugin store for Google Analytics 4. And we can see a bunch of plugins that let me install Google Analytics 4 onto my website. The second way to install Google Analytics is doing it manually. So taking this piece of code and actually placing it on the HTML of your website. What is the HTML of your website? Well, when you go to your website directly and right click on it, you will see view page source, at least in Chrome. That will actually open up the HTML that gets downloaded by your browser from the server. And here we need to place Google Analytics little code in order for it to work. And that needs to be happening on all the pages. So if you are doing it manually, you most likely know already what you are doing because you know code, and that should also not be a problem. You could also give that code over to your developer, obviously, and he or she would know what to do with it. Now, the third way is actually my preferred way. It's maybe a few more steps involved, but at the same time it will set you up for the future. So that's why I recommend it. And that way is to use a tool called Google Tag Manager. So what is Google Tag Manager all about? It's a tag management system where you have a separate interface. It's on a separate website, tagmanager.google.com, and you can set up certain tags. And these little JavaScript codes that you see here, this is actually a Google Analytics tag that we can install onto our website. Now, especially if you do any professional digital marketing, then you have maybe multiple of these tags that you in the end need to manage. So what you would need to do is either copy all of these tags into your code base, or you use a tag management system like Google Tag Manager. So let's go ahead and see what we would need to do in order to set up Google Tag Manager. So go over to tagmanager.google.com. Again, you need to log in with your Google account. And then once you create a new account, and I will just go ahead and create a new account here, you will again be asked for your account setup. We can just model what we saw inside of GA4 just now. So we have here our company, LLC, the country, and then you have your container name. Here I would actually choose the website. So in our case, I will just go with demoshop.com, or maybe you can also just take the URL just for distinguishability. So we'll just put this in place, okay? And then you choose where you actually want to install this, again on our website. So we'll create this and accept the TOS. And we have created a Google Tag Manager container. And this container will ask us to install 2 codes on our website. Again, there are plugins out there that you could utilize in order to install this. I will do this right now manually just to show you the process. We need to place this code in the head tag. So I will go ahead inside of my demo store here, go into the backend, and in WordPress, you can look at the theme files by going to the theme file editor, and I will choose to look for the header PHP, and that will let me install this on all the pages. So I'm going to go ahead. Here we go. Here's the theme header. And we dig through the code. We want to place this in, as it says here, paste this as high up in the head as possible. So we'll go ahead and look for our head section. So here's where the head section actually starts. I'll put it under the meta tags here, and we place this code. And then we have a second code where we need to place this immediately after the opening body tag. So again, I'll take a look and put this in place. Again, you can also ask your developer to do this for you if you're not familiar with this process, or use a plugin. So we have this now installed, and let's quickly go onto our page, right click here and see if you can see that code. Yes, here we go. Here's our Google Tag Manager code installed. The second part would be to now go into something called the preview mode. So we'll go over to Google Tag Manager, and this is our container. You can click on preview. This will put our browser into a special mode where we can test our marketing tags before we actually deploy them. So let's connect to our website, and here we go. We see Tag Assistant is connected, and that means that Google Tag Manager is now installed on this website correctly. Now with this tool installed, we can actually take our Google Analytics 4 code and deploy it onto our website through Google Tag Manager, and we don't need to touch the code anymore. So when we go to Google Analytics here, this is the code that we would need to deploy, but in Google Tag Manager itself, if we want to deploy a new tag, we can go here and say new tag. And when we click on tag configurations, we see that there are templates that you can use in order to deploy your different marketing codes. In our case, it would be our Google Analytics 4 configuration tag that we want to deploy.
Hey there, this is Sophia from the future. And if you do not see the GA4 configuration tag here, it might have been already replaced by the Google tag, which was announced this week. But do not worry, because it's basically the same thing. And if you had your GA4 config tag before, you don't have to do anything, as it will be automatically upgraded for you. To learn more about this update, check the description because I'm attaching a link for you there. Coming back to our tutorial.
So I'm also give this the appropriate name. And I need to enter a measurement ID, and that measurement ID is that copy your tag ID. This is the ID that we would need, and let's put this in place. We want to send a page view as well, and ignore all of the other settings for now. Then we need to just define a trigger. Now a trigger is kind of a rule when to deploy your marketing tags onto your website. So you can be very specific only on specific pages or on all the pages, which we want to do right now. So we'll go to trigger and go here. There's a pre-configured trigger called all pages. So let's choose that and save it. And again, this is not yet live on our website. We can update the preview mode by clicking on preview, go to connect, The cool thing about this is that this will deploy on our browser and only on our browser, so we can actually test it. So we got to this page right here, and in our tab there's also opened the Tag Assistant tab. We can see that our tags are fired, GA4 config tag has now fired. So this should be sending, theoretically, data over to Google Analytics as we speak. But in order to test this, we can actually go into Google Analytics, into our brand new account here, and look again in the admin section. And in the admin section under property, there's something called the debug view. Now with this debug view, you should be seeing all of the different hits that come through from your browser. Just be aware that this tries to be real time, but there's actually something going on in the background called batching that might appear that these hits don't go in real time and it takes a few seconds to come in. So if you have problems with any of that, please go over to your website again and try to trigger an event again by going, for example, from page to page, as I'm doing this now here. And let's see if we see any event come through. No, not yet. And this is typical for a new website. But here we go. We have a page view that just came through. And if we click on this page view event and this data that now came into Google Analytics 4, we can actually look into something called the page location. And we can see we are here on the product Beanie. And is that true? Yes, that's the exact URL that we are on right now. So if I go to our newsletter sign up form right here, let's see if that changes inside of Google Analytics 4 as well. So here we have a page view. Oh, this is still the Beanie. And again, it takes a while for these hits to come in, but eventually they do. And we have a new page view with the page location. Again, now newsletter sign up. So now data is being sent over to Google Analytics from our website, but only on our browser because we are still in the preview mode of Google Tag Manager. So that's a feature of Google Tag Manager that we are not live with all of our changes yet. We actually need to submit them as a version. So in this case, we have installed GA4 config tag and we can click on publish. So if anything goes wrong or you notice that your tracking is screwed up later on, you can actually go back and restore the previous version, for example. So really cool system with Google Tag Manager and my preferred way to install any kind of tracking. And this will be immensely helpful later on when we try to customize our GA4 installation to our business case, to our website. And now we are basically ready to use our Google Analytics 4 account. So as you can see, the setup is pretty trivial if you know what you are doing. There are a few more steps involved sometimes, and you need to find the best route in order to do this for you. And obviously the resources that you have available. If you have a developer, you can ask him. If you have plugins available, maybe that's the easier part for you. My preferred way is to go through Google Tag Manager because it gives me more flexibility later on when I want to customize my tracking. But now that we have data flowing into our Google Analytics 4 account, just need to make sure that the processing of that data is done correctly. And that's what we can influence with some configurations. So let's go through and see what configurations we need to pay attention to if we set up a brand new Google Analytics 4 account. So inside of our new Google Analytics account here, we see again in the admin section our account and our properties. And here's where you can manipulate the data that is coming in. And this is very important because we want to make sure that we get the most out of our data. Now this will depend on your website, what data you're actually gathering, what you're trying to achieve with it. But really the base configurations that you should be taking care of is one, in the property settings, you want to make sure that the time zone is correctly adjusted. We went through this at the setup stage. Then in the data streams, you want to connect obviously multiple of your data streams that you want to track in parallel. So if you have an iOS app or an Android app, you might want to configure that as well. Then later we'll get to conversions, very important as well, but we'll skip this for now because we'll get to the event tracking once we are customizing our installation. And then the most important setting that a lot of people forget is under data settings and then data retention. Now, this is the setting of how long Google Analytics will hold on to your data, at least the raw data part of it. And here we have a data retention setting of 2 months. Now, for privacy reasons, that might make sense in your business, but usually I would tell clients to go for the maximum, which is 14 months. So we should be fine with this one. So right at the beginning, I would choose data retention 14 months. Let's save this. And there are some other data collection settings that you can tick. So one is something called Google Signals. If you want to make your Google Analytics 4 into a data gathering machine for advertising as well, so Google Ads, you might want to turn on Google Signals, read through the stuff, and also adhere to the extra settings because it is privacy relevant. If you want to use Google Analytics 4 just as an analytics solution, so you just want to look into user behavior but not be as actionable about it in your advertising platforms, then you can keep this setting off. Right, moving on, we have other important settings which by default they are alright to use. So under reporting identity, we have a blended or observed way to identify a user, and in the default way Google Analytics is also using modeled data. So from their machine learning, we'll feed that into your analytics and try to figure out if somebody converted or not if that data is not available. Generally, it's up to a preference if you want to just rely on the data that you can actually gather or also on the machine learning from Google. But by default, this is turned to blended, and as the attribution model, data-driven is the attribution model that is used by default. You could also go for last click. The other ones here are just for the paid channel last click if you're interested in it. But data-driven is the recommended way, so I will go with this one right here. And then down below, we have a lot of different ways to connect Google Analytics to other products from Google, like the Google Ads account. I would definitely recommend to turn this on if you are running Google Ads and using Google Analytics to actually see insights from users that specifically are coming from Google Ads. There are numbers of ways that Google Analytics can sync up to the systems of Google Ads, and you can get richer insights with Google Analytics. So that's a recommended way to actually install. Again, in order to link, you just need to be logged into the same Google account, and then you can link your Google Ads account right here and establish the connection. Second, we have something called BigQuery. This is a little bit more advanced and we have videos about this, but if you want to get hold of the raw data and put it into the data warehousing solution of Google, then BigQuery is something you might want to set up. And of course, we also have a link to the Search Console. So if you're big into SEO and want to get insights from what Google is seeing on their side in terms of the search engine results, then you can also connect it to Google Analytics and have data flowing in. So definitely something I would take a look at and see if you can make use of these product links. So all in all, these are the most important configurations that you need to take care of before you start working with your Google Analytics data. Now, if you're seeing this later on and you haven't done these steps, you can obviously still change them around. Just notice that some of these settings might not be retroactive, which means that they only will work going forward and not change your data that is already in the system. So better to set this up at the beginning. So with these crucial parts, we already have a pretty solid GA4 tracking set up because we are already gathering data through our pageview tag that is installed on our website, and we should get the first data into our account. Now be aware that it takes about 48 hours for Google Analytics to process the data correctly. So apart from the real-time reporting, GA4 is just not as useful in the first 48 hours of it being installed. So wait 2 or 3 days and you will see some really cool data coming in, providing that you have the traffic on your website and the interactions that are happening there. But before we dive into all of the reporting capabilities of Google Analytics 4, I actually want to talk about a very important topic in GA4, which are events. Now you need to understand that everything that you send into Google Analytics is an event. You can think of it as a tiny little data point that anytime you do an interaction on a website, that gets sent over to Google Analytics and processed accordingly into reports. These events are super important for Google Analytics to give you useful data. And there are actually 3 types of events that you need to know about. First of all, there are the standard events. Standard events get tracked into Google Analytics automatically. For example, the pageview, a session start event. If you see that in the reporting, that's automatically tracked if you have Google Analytics installed on your website. The second event are actual enhanced measurement events. Now, if we dive back into Google Analytics here, into the admin section, we have skipped over a part in the data stream section. So if you go back into data streams and we look at the enhanced measurement events. Now, what are enhanced measurement events? These are specialized kind of automatic event tracking from Google Analytics, but you have the control to actually turn them on and or off. So we have, for example, scrolls, outbound link clicks, site search, form interactions, video engagement, file downloads. These make obviously tons of sense if you have one of these things installed and the interaction is automatically tracked, then you don't have to do more work to install more tracking. So generally they are quite useful, but I have seen some problems with them as well. Especially the form interaction one is something that I prefer to create my own tracking for instead of Google Analytics taking that over for me. So I'm going to turn this off right now, and this is obviously a tiny bit more control on your event tracking, what actually enters into your account. So we'll turn this off. And what does this now mean for our website? Well, on our demo store, if we go into the form tracking and, for example, the newsletter sign up, and let's add something in here, I submit this. This should not be automatically tracked by Google Analytics because we turned off enhanced measurement event for form tracking. But don't worry, in a second we'll add that back in. So just to recap, we have again standard events, automatic events that get tracked by Google Analytics code. The second are the enhanced measurement events, where you have a little bit of control of turning on the enhanced measurement event or not. And the third one, which we are going to explore now, is if you track explicit events with Google Analytics. And you can install them with our trusted tool Google Tag Manager, and that makes it so easy. So if we wanted to put back in our newsletter sign up form here, we can track this with Google Tag Manager, because that lets us pick up the interaction and send that data on to Google Analytics. So let's try this out. Inside of Google Tag Manager, again, we only have one tag installed, our GA4 config tag. But what we want to do now is install a new tag. So I'm going to go and click on new configurations, and we have here a GA4 Analytics event tag. And here we can reference our config tag. So here we have our GA4 config tag. That way we don't have to remember the measurement ID, which we already implemented earlier. So that will actually be pulled from the config tag. And then we simply can give it a name. Now there are different ways to name an event, and Google Analytics actually has recommended naming for certain event types. So let's go over to this kind of learn section here, and we have here recommended events, and you can see here that they want you to use certain event types in order for the system to be able to interpret that data. But if you don't find any of these appealing for you, you can actually also create your own. And this is what we are going to do right now. So as you can see, I want to adhere to a little bit of the naming convention. They are all in lowercase letters, and they have that underscore here, which is also called snake case. But yeah, Google Analytics 4 is very flexible, and therefore we can choose any kind of event name that we would like. In our case, I will just go with newsletter underscore signups. All right, we have an event name, and now we just need to have a trigger. So when do we want to fire this event? When somebody actually fills out our newsletter form right here. And there are different ways to actually track it and different interactions that we can pick up with Google Analytics 4. But the easiest way is if you have a thank you page. So I'm just gonna fill this out right here and click submit. And I'm actually redirected on to a thank you page, and it has a unique URL. So that is what I can use in order to trigger anytime somebody comes to this page. That means he filled out our form, and therefore we want to send that signal over to Google Analytics. So back in Tag Manager, under our triggers here, I'm going to go ahead and click on the plus button and build me a brand new trigger based on the event of the page view. So whenever the user comes to the right page, I will trigger this event. And I only want to fire this on some page views, not all page views. Where, and here we have the different conditions where the page URL contains, and I'm just going to paste this in, and let's get rid of the first part here, form thank you. We can give the trigger a distinct name, and I always go with the event name, so page view, and then form thank you. Let's save this. And we have created a distinct trigger when this event should happen, or this event gets sent off to Google Analytics 4. Let's give our whole tag a new name. So this is our GA4 tag. This time we are sending over an event when somebody reaches the form or signs up to our newsletter. Let's save this. And here in our roster, we have a new event called GA4 event newsletter. Well, little typo here. Okay. We have this now created. Now, again, we can go into the preview mode and test this whole thing out. So I'm going to go click on preview. That will reload my page and this handy little tag assistant tool. And on my page, I'm going to go over to newsletter sign up. And here I'm going to fill in our test data, submit this, and go back to my tag assistant. And we see here that we have fired our GA4 event newsletter sign up. That means that should also show up in Google Analytics. So let's go back to our admin section and look into our debug view. And here we have the events, and we have this brand new event called newsletter sign up. With this, we have now a distinct event. When this event happens, we are able to know that the user has signed up to our newsletter, which is a customized event for our business type. Not everybody has a newsletter. And therefore we made Google Analytics in this way just a little bit more customized to our use case and what data we would like to know about. And it's way more controllable than what we have with the enhanced measurement events. So this is how you can easily track your own events into Google Analytics 4. And again, just to recap, there are standard events that get sent over. There are enhanced measurement events, and now we have implemented a custom event that lets us get data into GA4 that we have tracked custom into GA4 through Google Tag Manager. One thing that I just remembered to do as well is we have just implemented our event onto our website, but it's not yet published through Google Tag Manager. So always go ahead and submit this as a version so you can actually gather that data through that event. So in our case, I'm gonna go here to our submit button and then publish a new version, give this a name and publish this. And now all our users that fill out the form should be tracked. At this stage, I know you are eager to dive into the data itself inside of Google Analytics and see where this event shows up and so on. But unfortunately, it takes a while for our data to reach Google Analytics and be processed, up to 48 hours. So it might not make sense to look at the reports just yet. I'll take a break here and come back once we have some data in our system. And now it's a day later and we have some data that came in. Users visited our website and have hopefully taken the action that we wanted them to take. So in order to see our data inside of GA4, we just need to go over to our reporting section right over here. And that will show us all the data that was gathered in our account. Now you don't see very pretty graphs yet because it's just been one day, but normally you would see more data here. Now this might be a little bit overwhelming, a lot of different graphs, charts. What can you actually see here? Well, really the behavior of your users on your website, and you can get unique insights and it can be very, very powerful. But in order to keep things simple, I would always go into the interface of Google Analytics 4 and ask a question. What do I want to find out? And dig through the data, see where you can actually find the answer to your question. So a simple question right now, since we have installed this event yesterday on our website, is how many people actually taken that action on our website. In order to find that out, we can go over to the engagement reports right here, and we have a report called events. And here we get a little chart as well as a table. And in that table, we can see the different events that happened on our website. Now, there are automatic events that were collected, such as the page view or session start event. There are enhanced measurement events that were collected, like the scroll event. And where is our custom event? That's actually a little bit further down here. We need to change over and go and show all the data. So let's go and scroll down. And we have here our newsletter sign up. Only 3 people, which were yesterday us, went through the form and actually converted on that. We can click on the event and get a little bit more information, a nice little graph, the parameters that were used, where these people came from. I just did this, so I'm here in Germany. And if Google Signals is installed, you also get information about certain demographic data as well. So that we have kind of answered our question in a very simplified way. But what about other questions? Where do people actually generally come from when they enter our website? Well, that's something we can find out in the acquisition report. So let's go over here under acquisition and click on traffic acquisition. There are different acquisition reports, obviously, but this is the one that I always use. And then we can scroll down and we see the different channels that the user came through. I oftentimes switch over here from the primary dimension, the ones that you see here, to actually session source medium, because these are the ones that my UTM parameters are based off. If you don't know what UTM parameters are, again, something to read up on, but super important when it comes to finding out where your users are coming from. You definitely should be using UTMs and look into that. So we have a lot of people here from Google Organic, and this is our top channel, and we can actually see here the users that came through, the sessions that were generated by these users, how many of these sessions were engaged sessions, and we can see how many events were done in sessions, the engagement rate, we have the event count, and then also the conversions itself. Now, you might see a number here, you might not see a number here, but it's super important that you actually have conversions set up. What are conversions? Conversions are simply the action that you want your user to take on your website. So depending on the purpose of the website, and every website is different, you might want to have the user buy a product or sign up to your newsletter or click an ad. And you can define this as conversion. Now, in our case, we have just sent in a very important event, our newsletter sign up. How would we classify this as a conversion? Well, simply, we need to go over to our admin section, back to our admin section here, and then we can go either to events, and when we click on events, we see all the events that were tracked inside of our website. So these are just the event names, and you can simply toggle this on when you have your conversion here. And this is the column for mark as conversion. And this is how you can set up conversion tracking. But you need to obviously first have the event tracked in your system correctly. Now, this is exactly the same functionality that you find here under conversions itself. So if you go to conversions events, you see that here are just the conversions that were marked as conversions. You can set up a new conversion event and type in your newsletter sign up. But yeah, the more convenient type is to go into events here and click on this little button, and then it should also show up in events when you do so. By the way, purchases are always marked as conversions automatically, as they are recommended events that you should set into Google Analytics if you use e-commerce tracking. Now let's go back into the interface. This is how you set up conversions. We want to see what other data we can actually see inside of Google Analytics. So I'm going to go back to the acquisition reports under traffic acquisition right here, and we find when we switch over to our source medium again, we have Google Organic as our main source. We have a bunch of conversions here, and then also the revenue that's attached to it. Now, if you want to track revenue, you need to set up e-commerce tracking. That's another topic in itself, and we have some videos on this channel in order to show you how to set this up. Now, with that, is that all? Well, you can infinitely ask more and more questions around your data and try to get to the desired answer and really get to the insight that you are searching for. The aha moment, that's what we want to get to. And there are different tools inside of the interface of Google Analytics 4 in order to get to that point. What are these tools? Well, simply put, they are filters. So we can filter our data based on certain criteria and look at our data from different angles. So for example, the first angle would be, well, the first filter that everybody usually learns about is the date filter. So these are the users that came to the website in a given time frame. In our case, it's the last 28 days. But we can actually change this around and just say, well, what about today? And that will filter our data to just our time frame that we have chosen here, and we can look through that data. That's just one way to filter your data. If you want to concentrate your efforts, for example, on just Google Organic, you could also just go in and put this into the search bar. So Google Organic, and the table here will be filtered down to only this result, which would focus our efforts a little bit on that end. So again, if you have a big table, obviously this is much more useful if you have a very big table and you want to search through results here. But what you can also do is compare certain things. So we can compare date ranges. So for example, today versus yesterday. Let's do that. And it will give us a little bit of a comparison here with some percentages of how it changed as well. In our visualization, we see the same thing. And that is very useful if you, for example, see your traffic spiking upwards and asking yourself, is this normal? Well, maybe you should compare it to the last period or the week before, the month before that spike happened, and see if the spike maybe happens every time on this time of day or on the previous months or even on a yearly basis. So really flexible on the date and time. We can also compare other things like traffic channels against each other. So let's go back and look through and say, how is Google Organic versus Bing Organic actually working? For that, we can utilize the comparison feature up here. So we can build a comparison between our source medium for Google Organic. Let's apply this. And then we can add a new comparison for, again, source medium and this time our Bing organic traffic. Let's apply this. And we actually still have all users in here. So we are going to remove this from our comparison, close this down, and we should see some information about how is Google Organic matching up to Bing Organic. So in our case here, we have 22 versus 1 session, right here 59 versus 1 session. And yeah, the metrics are obviously very, very small since we have only a very, very limited data set after 1 day, but you get the gist of it. You can dig into the data, filter it, and enhance the understanding of what's going on your website, how users are actually using your website itself. So don't be shy, try to utilize these tools that are available in the reports. And this is essentially how you do data analysis inside of the interface of Google Analytics 4. With that said, let's take a look at what other reports are available inside of GA4 and what we can see here. So with that, I want to switch over to the demo account of Google Analytics, so the merchandise store, as it has more data in it. I will make it a little bit easier to explain. We go back to reports here and take a look at acquisition, engagement, and monetization reports. So these categories are something that you can customize, but with the default account, you first go into the acquisition reports, which is where are users actually coming from. Then we have the engagement reports, how are users then using my website itself? And we have monetization reports, are they taking the action and what are the insights on these actions that they are taking? So in case of a website that is monetized, such as an e-commerce store, you would have e-commerce data in here. So as we can see, we have information about where users are coming from. This is very important for traffic tracking, marketing tracking, marketing analytics in that sense. Then we have engagement reports where we can obviously see our events, but also our conversions. So if you have multiple conversions set up, you can get insights on those. And also pages and screens where you can maybe find out what are the most popular pages on my website, how are users using them, are users actually staying on these websites, are they scrolling down, for example. All of that good stuff can be found in the pages and screens report. We have a landing page report, so the first page that the user sees in their session and what pages actually users use to enter your website. These are very important pages because you obviously want to have the best impression and the best foot forward at the beginning, and you should make sure that your landing pages are optimized. Then we have monetization reports that are much more about the crucial actions on your website. So we have, for example, e-commerce purchases. Again, you would need to have e-commerce tracking set up in order to see all this, but here you can see what products are actually being sold most in our merchandise store, and maybe also the revenue right here, the item revenue that was made, but also important details such as items added to cart. And then you can look up other information about the user purchase journey, so how many people have actually purchased, and then view the product and added it to basket, and you have a little bit of a funnel just right here. Again, this can be quite customized to your liking, but these are the reports that you see by default inside of Google Analytics 4. So I encourage you to just click through them and see what insights you can get. These are not very extensive yet. Again, there is also a library that you can set up, and I will go back here to our demo account. If we go to library, we can actually create more reports, and we can also add from some templates that they have available as well. So I encourage you to just explore and see what you can do here. But this is not all for reporting inside of GA4. You can actually build your own reports in a separate interface, which is called the Explore interface. So let's go over to Explore, and this is under reports. You see here Explore section. And this is the exploration section where you can build different kind of visualizations of your data based on predefined patterns. So we have the freeform report, the funnel exploration, we have path exploration, segmentations, and so on. So just to show you what this looks like in the demo account, they have some information here. So if we, for example, wanted to look at a funnel report, we can enter this exploration section, and it gives us an interface where we can add our variables and then our settings for our different funnel visualizations right here. You can build a standard funnel or a trended funnel, for example, where you can see if the funnel steps are actually going up or down. You can build in if that funnel should be an open funnel or not, and obviously the steps as well. This is just for the funnel visualization. Really cool if you wanted to build something that shows a sequence of steps that a user needs to take. So for example, your checkout or so. But you can also choose other reports, such as a freeform report right here, where you can build these tables that we have looked at from scratch in this interface. So let me just show you what this would look like. Click here on freeform and it will populate some data. So here we go. You can build these reports inside of Google Analytics 4. You can save them and later pick them out again. Unfortunately, it's not yet possible to take your exploration reports and put them into the reporting interface of Google Analytics 4, but that might be something that is coming down the line. Okay, I know this has been a lot and I am not able to show you all of the different functionalities of the reporting section of Google Analytics 4. This is really up to you. You need to go in and now explore this by yourself because your website probably has different data than we have here, and it will be so much more interesting once you click through these reports and actually find out something about your users. Just stay curious, ask questions and dig into the data. All right, now that you are familiar with the interface of Google Analytics 4 and can hopefully pull the data that you would need in order to answer your questions, you might be asking yourself, where do I go from here? And really what I want to emphasize is once you go through the exercise of actually tracking the correct data into your account and then looking at that data hopefully on a regular basis, then you want to get to the action step to actually get an ROI on your analytics investments and all the time and effort that you put into this tool. And you might be asking yourself, how do I actually do this? Well, I have 3 suggestions here for you. The first thing is to take a look at your data on a regular basis. Look at all of the questions that you might want to have for this data and try to find the answer. Look at it on a regular basis to spot any kind of trends and elevate your understanding of the user behavior on your website. That will inevitably lead to an action because oftentimes you find these little things where you say, hey, I just need to change this on my website or this experiment, then I will maybe be able to elevate this or optimize this kind of funnel flow, these kind of conversion rates around this. So this usually comes natural if you look at your data on a regular basis. But then don't forget, you want to go back into the data once you have ran the experiment or you have changed something on the website and see if it actually improves your website and the performance of the website or the metrics going up or down. That is a crucial feedback loop that you want to go through, and that's where analytics really becomes fun because you are able to see a metric moving based on your actions. The second part here is really about a tool that is connected to Google Analytics, which is Google Ads. So if you are using Google Ads to drive traffic to your website, you can improve your Google Ads campaigns through Google Analytics by connecting both of these tools. And there are different ways to actually utilize this connection. One very powerful one is that you can build certain audiences in Google Analytics 4 and send them over to Google Ads to retarget to them or use them in your advertising. So for example, if you find out that certain people get stuck in a funnel flow and don't buy, you can take this group as an audience and send them over to Google Ads and advertise to specifically that group. So very powerful connection between Google Analytics and Google Ads and makes you take action right away. The third suggestion that I have for you is when you are not able to do the action right away on the website and change something around, because maybe it's not even your website and you are just tasked with looking at that data. So for example, in bigger organizations, you might not be the decision maker to change something around on the website right away. You need to present it to people. And Google Analytics, while it is a nice interface, it is kind of a little bit overwhelming when somebody who is not understanding the system needed to log into it. Although you could obviously invite people to your system and make them see that data, there is a really cool tool from Google as well that lets you visualize data on a dashboard. I want to show you it right now. It's called Looker Studio. And with this tool, you can build dashboards just like this. And it's really easy to set up. So just to give you a little bit of a demo here, you can build a report. And with that report, we just need to connect some data. So we add some data to our canvas from Google Analytics. We can choose our demo property or our account and connect that to Looker Studio. And then we have this open canvas that we can place certain charts on, like for example, a line chart right here or a bar chart. And we can, once we are done, share this out to our stakeholders. And the clue is that your stakeholders, the ones that are looking at this report, don't actually need access to Google Analytics itself. You just give them the report and present it in a way that is understandable for them. Also really cool for impressing your clients. So definitely something I would check out. We have more video trainings on this as well, as it's an essential tool, I think, in the analytics stack that you should be looking at. So really crucial, take action on your data. There are more action steps that you could take, but really these are the crucial ones. And always asking yourself, what can I do based on that data? That's how you get an ROI on your analytics. Now with that said, you probably are asking yourself, Google Analytics here and there, I understood the basics right here, but how can I go further with Google Analytics? How can I go beyond the basics? Let me give you a few tips here. To visualize all of the learnings that are actually involved in Google Analytics, and it can be quite deep, we have come up with this little mind map here that shows you Google Analytics for the basic concepts of things. We covered some of this in the past videos, why you would be using GA4, the data flows, the data model itself, data streams, what this actually means. But if you dive deeper into the tool itself, then you might want to be looking at things like what other measurement forms there are, how you can send data into Google Analytics for, how the processing actually works, and also how you can efficiently go into analysis and the interface itself. There are a lot more tricks around this as well. We obviously also have some quirks and issues that you will get to know once you are more experienced with the tool itself. And then exporting data is also something that you might want to discover with BigQuery, Google Sheets, or Google Data Studio, which is now Looker Studio. So really still a lot of different fields that you might want to tackle when it comes to Google Analytics 4. We obviously have some resources for you available. So if you want to dive deeper, go ahead and check out our YouTube channel where we have tons of videos. For example, here Sophia created 13 GA4 audiences and how to do that. We have resources about Looker Studio, about how to track certain things, and obviously the crucial tool of Google Tag Manager, which helps you to create tracking for Google Analytics 4. So all of this is available on YouTube as well as on our blog. So you can go over to our blogs. We write very lengthy blog posts all about Google Analytics 4, from different things like Looker Studio, but then also how you could switch over from Universal Analytics to GA4, how to install TikTok tracking, or how to create custom insights as well. So don't miss out on these resources that we have available for you. But if you want to go even further, even deeper into it, we also have paid offerings as well. One that I want to shout out just now is our GA4 Firefighting Kit, which gives you essential templates, little documents to show you how to install certain things. So we made this really easy for you if you might want to look at how to install tracking mechanisms for Google Analytics 4. We, for example, have these SOPs that we've created and checklists for example, a Google Analytics 4 audit that you can go through as well. So very handy resource for everybody who deals with these implementations more and more often. So definitely something to check out. We actually have a little bit of a discount for you down below in the description as well. And that's already it with this little course on Google Analytics 4. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked it, please give us a thumbs up and stay tuned to new videos that come out all the time for GA4 as the tool is always evolving. Now, my name is Julian, and I'll say till next time.